Hello, I'm Zorab and this is Byther Farm, and today I'm fitting a soaker hose. It's been just over a month since I started planting in our new polytunnel from direct plants, and I'm really pleased with how it's looking. So on this side there are trays of young plants coming through. On this side there are ones that I've potted on or pricked out, and they're growing on. And then in the centre here are lots of salad plants at various different stages of growth. It became obvious fairly quickly that I was going to need to work out some sort of system for watering in here, because obviously no rainwater is getting into it, and daily walking in here with a hose was just wasteful of water and also wasteful of my time. So I had a look around, and there were various different systems you could use. There are dripper hoses, so that's like a little spike that you put into the ground, and it drips water at a certain point, and then there's a bit of hose to another dripper point, and you can put those right next to individual plants and it will keep them watered. But what I'm growing here is much more like a nursery bed. So there's rows and rows and rows where I've planted seeds, or on this side I've planted out small plants that I've grown from seed. This side I've sown directly. So I'm going to need to keep the ground fairly constantly moist, and for plants like cucumbers that don't like drying out and then getting wet and then drying out and getting, they like the kind of constant moistness to prevent them from going bitter. So it became obvious I was going to need some sort of watering system that was absolutely going to work in these circumstances. So the soaker hose that I've chosen looks like this. It's actually made from recycled car tyres, so I like that it's recycled, and it is a porous pipe, so it's got tiny little holes all the way through it. And the water comes in at a very low pressure and very gently drips out of it. Installing this was so simple. There was one part that I wasn't quite sure about, and I rang my friend Tony, and his channel is Tony Stevens Gardens, Gadgets and Gizmos, and if you're not familiar with Tony's channel, it's quite new, so I'll leave a link above and below. You may want to check that out. So anyway, I asked Tony about a pressure reducer, because everything I'd read said I needed one of those. He helped me make sure that I had that fitted the right way round, and other than that it was very straightforward. You can buy this as a kit, or as I did, which was individual components. I'll leave some links in the information below to soaker hose kits, and also to the individual components that I've used to create this watering system. And all I had to do was lay out the hose on the ground where I wanted it to go. So I've got one length over on the far side watering tomatoes, one in the midpoint here for the cucumbers, and one for these very lovely salad vegetables. So I laid those out in place, and then I bought stoppers which push into the end, and connectors which are T-shaped or L-shaped, or there are straight connectors for joining lengths together. All I needed to do was spend a few minutes making a diagram of how I wanted it to go, and then I just start cutting it and connecting it together. Well, that was easier said than done. Putting a stopper into these was really difficult. If you're enjoying this video and you'd like to see more like this, please subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to hit that little notification bell, because unless you hit that, YouTube won't tell you each time I put up a new video. It took me a few minutes to work out the best way to make the fittings go into this pipe. So I went and got a cup of very hot water. It was boiling water. I let it cool a tiny bit, and then I put the pipe into the hot water for 45 seconds to a minute, which softened it. It softened it considerably, which meant it was much easier to put the end stoppers in and the connectors in. So once I had the pipe laid out where I wanted it exactly, and all those connectors put in, the last thing I needed to think about was how to get water to the pipe. And everything I read said that I needed a water pressure reducer which was a very simple little fitting that clipped onto this, very much like the garden hose systems that have bits that clip on. In fact, that's exactly what it was. It was part of a garden hose system, so it did all clip together very easily. And you just need to make sure that on the water pressure thingy, you'll see an arrow, and that's the flow of the water. So you need to make sure that if the arrow is pointed that way, the water comes in that way, and that will reduce the water pressure right down, because you don't want the water firing through here really quickly, because otherwise it will come out really quickly nearest to the point of entry, but you won't get any at the far end. If you've got a low pressure, it will seep through the whole hose, and you'll get an even distribution of water throughout your soaker hose. Clever stuff. One of the other things worth bearing in mind is that although the information that comes with the soaker hoses says you can bury them up to 8 inches deep, people that I've spoken to said that those tiny little micro pores clog up really quite quickly, so the hoses are better off being laid on top of the ground, on the surface, and dripping through that way. Now I've set this system up in 2 parts, so I'm having one system on that side and one on this side, so that during the winter, if I decide to only have one side of the polytunnel running, then I can just be using that one side system. And it might be at a later date I want to change that and connect them all up together, but using the connectors, it's a very simple job to do. At the moment I'm using the garden hose to provide the water for the system, but that is not my intention long term. Very soon I plan to bring 2 IBC tanks and pop them outside the door. Those are the great big 1,000 litre storage tanks that you can get second hand, and as long as you buy one that's had food products in it or food safe products in it, then it's okay to use them, as long as they give them a good wash out. And I can set up a rainwater collection system, store the rainwater, and use that to water the plants in the polytunnel. And so wherever you are in the world and whatever you've got planned for today, I hope it's a good one. And I also hope you'll join me again next time.